Welcome back, YouTubers, to another episode of Near Mint Condition. Today, I'm going to give you a tour of my comic book collected editions. Omnibus, absolute editions, trade paperbacks, things like that. So sit back and enjoy. So I'll go ahead and start with some of my independent books that I own, independent Dark Horse and things like that. We have, Mike Mignola's Hellboy up there, followed by Eastman and Laird's original Ninja Turtle run. These aren't the works. These aren't the color ones. These are the original black and white printings. Up there we have the Sixth Gun and Eric Powell's The Goon, which if you haven't read The Goon, it's quite excellent, quite funny. I think a friend of mine introduced me to that series. I refused to read it for like 10 years, and I finally did when they started coming out with the library edition. Then BPRD, which is a spin-off series, of course, of Hellboy. And it's still ongoing, and I wish they would keep doing the hardcover editions, because these unfortunately, once again, Dark Horse has a tendency to make things go out of print, and when they print a softcover edition, they stop printing the hardcovers, making them impossible to find, so people that are trying to collect hardcovers can't find volume 4. This is some of my Vertigo stuff. Brian Azzarello's 100 Bullets. Here we have Ed Brubaker. This is a Icon. This was a Marvel printing. So these are the Criminal Volume 1 and 2, and they're quite excellent. Up there to me with Fatale. I really like that book. Incognito is pretty good. I wish he could go back and finish it. And the Fade Out, Happy. Day Tripper is a book I finally read last year and I really enjoyed. It's done by Fabio Moon and Gabriel Ba, the Brazilian brothers. And pretty much it's the story of a guy, and every issue he dies in a different way, in a different time in his life. And it just, I don't know, it's really good. It's a really emotional ride. Some Image books, Lazarus and Casanova. Need to finish that set out. And here we go. Down here, we have the original Carl Barks collection. These are the new Fantagraphics printings. And they have sworn that they're going to release all the Carl Barks, Uncle Scrooge, and Donald Duck books. So, we will see. And of course, my personal favorite, the Don Rosa collection. These are the library editions. These are the box sets that have the 2 books in them. So this is volume 1 and 2. There should be 10 volumes altogether of the Don Rosa library. And I love Don Rosa's work so much that I kept my original Boom Comics release of the Life and Times of Uncle Scrooge. This is IDW's new Uncle Scrooge books that are coming out. These are reprints of European comics. And of course, even though Don Rosa lives in Louisville, Kentucky, about an hour away from me, I had to go to a convention to get this done. And I've actually ran into him in walking down the street one time in Louisville, and he said I was the second person in his lifetime that has ever recognized him. And it's kind of a funny story. I recognized the back of his head because he looks like Scrooge McDuck. So, when I told him that, it sounds really creepy. Like, hey, I recognize it. No, man, what am I saying? So, anyway, then we have Strangers in Paradise, Rachel Rising, which was a really good book. And Strangers in Paradise is just phenomenal. It's one huge saga. Then we have some more Image books over here. The new Darkwing Duck comic that if you're not reading, it's really fun. It's done by Joe Books. And Tad Stone's the creator of Darkwing Duck. Sketched that out for my daughter. He's a really nice dude. Down here some more Image books and IDW stuff. Rising Stars was surprisingly really good. I had never read that book up until a few years back. But it's really good. Pride of Baghdad. I'm a big... most of us collectors... I follow writers and I follow... No, I follow them. I follow characters, I follow writers, and I follow artists, which is my downfall, which is why I have such a big room. But Brian K. Vaughan is one of my favorite writers of all time. And this book was awesome. It's pretty much the story of a Pride of Lions with gorgeous artwork by Nico Henrichon. I'm probably butchering the name. Pretty much there's a bombing in Iraq during I think it's Desert Storm. And the zoo gets bombed and these lions are out of the zoo and they have to try to survive and stuff with their kid. So man, without giving it away, it's another emotional roller coaster. I can talk about each of these books. I mean, how can I not talk about Mouse? Concentration camp done through the mice. Cats were Nazis, dogs were Americans. It's just a wonderful book. All right, so those are deep. And then we get to Invincible, which is kind of just a fun book. It's done by Robert Kirkman, the guy that did Walking Dead. And it's a good take on superheroes, honestly. It's a fun take. It reminds me a lot of the Ultimate Spider-Man run. Sex Criminals and The Wicked Divine. And down here, we have The Colossal Conan, which is a huge damn book. I believe it's 50 issues of Conan from the Dark Horses, originally run by Kurt Busiek. Fear Agent. This is Rick Remender's run. It's an awesome story from beginning to end. Of course, Sin City. This is one, like I said, I follow artists. So, this is Joe Madureira's book. It's Battle Chasers. It was done by Image Comics. This one comes with a poster. He never finished it because the guy is too talented and went on to do video game designs. But he has a new video game coming out fairly soon this year in 2017, and he has sworn that he is going to go back and finish that comic. The Parker Martini edition, which is Darwin Cook's, the late Darwin Cook's, that he never did get to finish that story. So maybe we'll get one more hardcover limited edition like that, hopefully. His art is completely gorgeous. Now we'll move on to the Marvel stuff. These are my Marvel hardcovers. Try to keep them in alphabetical order, but Avengers is still Avengers, even though it got replaced by New Avengers and Mighty Avengers, whatever. Moving on to Civil War and Daredevil, Kevin Smith's, and Bendis. And I know I've gone on about how much I don't like Bendis, but his Daredevil run was pretty solid. I have to admit, it was a fun read. Probably one of the best and underrated runs on the Fantastic Four is Mark Waid and Mike Wieringo's Fantastic Four run. I wish they would release an omnibus of that for the people that have not read it. And I would, like most people, I can double dip and triple dip sometimes on these things. Like, I own the original comic book. I own the original. Then I move on from comic book to trade paperback, and then from trade paperback to hardcover edition. And then if the hardcover edition, they eventually announce an omnibus edition, I'll get the omnibus edition, which is what I did with Kurt Busiek's Avengers run, which we'll see in a little bit. So, down here we have the beginning of a PAX run on Hulk, which is Planet Hulk, and then moving on to Werewolf Hulk, and the two hardcovers that Marvel gave us, and they kind of stopped at this one, and I wish I had kept going. I mean, how could you not be a Marvel fan and not enjoy Marvels? Then we have the Punisher right here. Garth Ennis' Punisher started off with the Marvel Knights title, and then Ennis wanted to take it to another level and make it a Max title, which is the adult title. So I have the omnibus, which we'll see here in a little bit, but these are to finish off his run on Punisher. Of course, Runaways. Like I said, I'm a big Brian K. Vaughan fan, and because of Runaways, I became an Adrian Alphonse fan because of his artwork. Alright, and then we have more Spider-Man stuff over here. Some of the hardcovers. And Spider-Man tends to... This is the age of Marvel when it starts to get confusing, because you go from Amazing Spider-Man ended, and then John Byrne brought him back, so it's Amazing Spider-Man again. And this kind of captures the J. Michael Straczynski Spider-Man all the way up until Brand New Day. Or, I'm sorry, One More Day. And then that ends, and it becomes Superior Spider-Man when Doc Ock kind of takes over Peter Parker's body. When that ended, it became Amazing Spider-Man again, and then that ended after Spider-Verse. So it's Amazing Spider-Man again. So there's like 5 volumes of Amazing Spider-Man #1, and if you don't know, as a new reader, where to begin. You know, #1 doesn't usually mean the beginning. Then we have Young Avengers, which was another phenomenal book. And I wish that team would come back and do more with those characters. And then down here we move on to the trade paperbacks and Marvel Premiere hardcovers, which is the size of a trade paperback. They're not... They look a little taller, but honestly they're the exact same print size as these. This is just the Spider-Man stuff. I was debating on trading these in and getting the Clone Saga Omnibus that was just released, but it was just a dark time during Marvel, and I kind of passed up on that. So those are good enough. And then we have Dan Slott's complete Spider-Man run in hardcover until it became, like I said, Superior Spider-Man. Some Avengers stories. More Avengers, more of the Bendis stuff. And Secret Avengers by Rick Remender. And I think, yeah, it was actually Brubacher that started that series. That was a really good series. I know I give this series a lot of crap. The Avengers Arena, which is kind of a rip-off of Battle Royale. It was okay. Some Captain America's in there. Moving on to the Daredevil and Fantastic Four. And these are all... I try to put these all in chronological order as much as I can. The things that throw me off are usually like the limited series or things like that. And as you may have noticed by now, Marvel, Dark Horse, and DC, which you'll see here in a second, have a tendency to change their logo or how big the books are. Like you could tell this is one of the first printings of The Life and Death of Captain Marvel. You know, they go from that to this to that. Now the Epic editions are doing this, so I hope they stay with this. And eventually I would love for all my Marvel titles to look like that in the spine. I really like the Epic look of the books. They're simple, but I really like them. And now we'll move on to the Guardians of the Galaxy that I grew up with before I got into the new Guardians with DNA. Was the 90s Jim Valentino stuff. And right up until this point is when he ended up leaving the book to go on and form Image Comics, of course. We all know that story. And the Hulk run right here by Peter David, which I wish they would do an omnibus of, because those are some phenomenal stories. And also include his first few stories that are not in the first book. So maybe we'll get some more epics of those. Just some more Hulk stuff. And like I said, I'm also a fan of art, so while these stories were kind of crappy, these Red Hulk stuff, I really like McGinnis and Arthur Adams' artwork. Now, that was an underrated book, The Incredible Hercules, Iron Fist. That was a really fun title. And Iron Man, epics. Next Wave, book I wish they would bring back. And Marvel Boy by Morrison was great. Really cool character that I wish they had done more with. And I'm not including Bendis' Avengers in that. The New Warriors, not the New Warriors I grew up with. Then we have She-Hulk. A lot of the Thor books. These are... So, again, after Heroes Return, after these books, the Heroes Reborn books, this is during a time when Marvel decided to sell some of their franchise, or rent their franchise off to Image Comics. So Captain America, the Avengers, Iron Man, Fantastic Four all went to Image for a while. But when they came back, they also started as #1s. So these are the new Thors when they came back from Heroes, I think it's Heroes Return, that's what it was called. Moving on to the new Fractions Mighty Thor. Thunderbolts, that's another series that surprises me that is not in Omnibus edition. Some great books. And moving on to the Wolverine comics. And then, of course, some of the X-Men stuff down here. That I will eventually would love to own in hardcover. X-Men The End. It's a really good book. Ugh, gosh, I'm such a completist. I even own the Chuck Austin books. And, I mean, I know I can't be the only one that owns those, obviously, because this stupid book right here is out of print. The Draco, I think, is the one that's out of print. Moving on to some of the Deadpool stuff. The Exiles, which is a great run. Started off with Judd Winnick and I think ended up with Chris Claremont. New Exiles by Claremont, not so great. Then the New Mutant Classics right here. Even though I own, like I said, the issues, I still wanted to get them in a book that I can get off the shelf. And they're starting to do epic runs of these too, so that's going to be really cool. The New X-Men. I'm surprised they haven't finished or done more of these books, reprinted them like in Ultimate Editions. So this is one thing that aggravates me about Marvel is, but they're gotten better. So we have the New Mutants Back to School, which is right here. This is when they brought the New Mutants back. And we only got one volume of this, unfortunately, because Volume 2 never came out, and they went ahead and changed the name over to New X-Men, which is right here. So, New X-Men took over New Mutants all the way up until the end. And that was a really fun book. This is the book that kind of introduced X-23 into the Marvel Universe after her miniseries. Well, I take it back. She was in the Uncanny X-Men with when Claremont introduced her too. Peter David's awesome run on X Factor is Volume 2, and for some reason they've only done those of the original X Factor, coming back with another one. And some more X-Men Legacy and X-Men Adjectiveless. So books like Wednesday Comics get stuck all the way up at the top because it's too big to put in one of the shelves. And speaking of big, here are the Absolutes. Even though The Boys is not technically Absolute, it still counts as Absolute. It's the definitive edition from Dynamite Comics. And we have Absolutes here. I believe Haunted Night, Long Halloween, of course. This one I think is signed by Tim Sell. Yeah, it's Tim Sell's signature. It's pretty cool. Moving on to, of course, Sandman. And when the Omnibus of Sandman came out, I debated on getting it and selling these off, but I really like the Absolute format. It is by far my favorite. It's the way that I enjoyed Crisis on Infinite Earths and Batman Hush. Just big art. And even though the art in Sandman when it starts off is kind of not the best and sketchy, it's still really good. And hoping to finish this off this year, Transmetropolitan, with Volume 3. So, I get pretty much all the books I get are the ones that I really enjoy or I want to reread. Because sometimes if I get a book and I don't like it, I sell it. Or sometimes if I look at my shelf and I'm like, man, those books kind of suck. I'm just trading them or selling them. But then there are books that I know I'll never get rid of, like Starman. I mean, these are one of my favorite comic books of all time. The Starman Omnibus by James Robinson. I would love to do just a solid episode on how much Starman means to me. It's such a good book. We have Swamp Thing, Alan Moore. Once again, Brian K. Vaughan. Ex Machina. And Why the Last Man. Why the Last Man's brilliant. And moving on to the comics. The trade paperbacks here. The DC stuff. Lately, DC has been printing newer things from the late 90s, early aughts of their Batman comics, Batman family, like Azrael, Robin, Batgirl, Nightwing. So I hope they keep going with that trend because Batman being such a important character in the DC universe, he didn't really get his collected editions going. Like of course we got Year 1 and Year 2. Speaking of Year 2, not this version, but Year 2 was the very first trade paperback I ever bought. It was probably about 15 years ago. Probably longer than that. Not that one, but I bought it because I missed out on some of the McFarlane stuff when it came out, and I wanted to read it. And I ended up getting a trade paperback, and obviously I have a problem. So moving on to Nightfall, which they just announced a Omnibus coming out here in a couple months, and No Man's Land, the Ed Brubaker collection. So some more Batman collected, Birds of Prey. Over here we have the Blackest Night storyline, Jeff Johns. And Blue Beetle, Catwoman. This is the one thing I was talking about with DC and Marvel and Dark Horse that annoy me. So we have the logo down here, and then we have the new logo when they went to the new 52. Depending on what printing you get, and then we go back to this logo, of course, because I got the other printing. And now we have the new DC logo. So even though this is the collection of the Catwoman run that started off with Brubaker and Darwin Cook, it's it kind of looks like crap, and why people go to custom collected binding. Anyway, enough about that. First world problems. We go into the Final Crisis and Flash up here, which I'm so happy that they're releasing these Flash collections by Mark Waid. Really glad that they're doing those. Down to the Green Arrow books. I need to start getting the Mike Grell stuff. I keep meaning to, but I kind of wait. Usually I take a gamble with the DC books. Like, sometimes they want to collect everything and not enough people pre-order, so they cancel the book. And then sometimes they just don't finish it. Like, it happened with Azrael. It happened with Robin at first. And now they've gone back and started reprinting these books. And hopefully they'll finish them out. So, we'll see. There's the Justice League book, which for some reason has not been printed in Omnibus edition yet. I know they have those hardcovers, but I'm still waiting in the hopes that they'll do Grant Morrison's Justice League at least in hardcover. Manhunter. Another underrated book. These are some of the new printing that I was talking about, the DC Nightwing books. This is the original printing. So as I buy them, I replace my older versions. Like I said, sometimes I double, triple dip. There's the Robin book. I need to get the new one so I can replace the Flying Solo book. The last part of the Robin series, the Suicide Squad books, which they keep printing, so I'll keep purchasing them. I love the Suicide Squad. Superman books. I just sold my Man of Steel collection. I'll show you why here in a little bit. More of the Superman books, Wonder Woman. Onto the new 52 books down here, which I started getting some of them in hardcover and then some of them in trade paperback, and they finish out down here at the bottom. And for the most part, it was okay. But most of them were fun. Of course, most people can agree that Batman by Snyder and Capullo was probably one of the highlights of New 52. And then onto the Vertigo stuff, which I'm hoping Fables will be collected in Absolute or more likely an Omnibus format, but we'll see. So there's all Fables and Jack of Fables and of course Preacher. So up here we have The First Kingdom. If you haven't read this is an awesome book with amazing artwork by Jack Katz. It was his story that he started in the late 70s, and it's just full of detail, and it took forever for these books to finally come out. So, it's almost a lifetime in the making, but Volume 6 finally came out a couple years ago, and it is a fun, really deep story. I won't lie, it takes a while to get through, though. There's Morning Glories. Like I said, it's kind of scattered about. I don't really have a lot of things in one place. I try to keep my Marvel and DC stuff in one place, but some of the best comic books ever printed. I mentioned this in our Halloween episode. The EC comic collection. These are amazing. And start off with I started getting the Gemstone ones, and then Dark Horse ended up finishing them, which I'm glad somebody did. Otherwise, they would have been on hiatus. Because Gemstone did these back in the days, or the black and white printings. But hopefully, they will finish. Dark Horse will finish out all of the EC archives. That'd be great. Chew, which is coming to an end, so Volume 6 will be the last one. The Fifth Beatle, which was a lot of fun. A really good book. Of course, Lock and Key. I think that gets enough praises. And Calvin and Hobbes. Who did not grow up with that series? Amazing. So, remember when I said I like art? That's why I own these Spawns. Not because of the story, because I think I read issue 1, and that's the only Spawn I may have read. Maybe issue 10, something like that. The one with Alan Moore. But I really like the artwork. I was a big McFarlane fan, that's why I ended up getting those. The Walking Dead. And House of Mystery and House of Secrets. Now, These are the essentials. These are essentials Marvel. Showcase are the black and white editions. They're really cheap. They were like $15. But lately they've announced that they're going to do a hardcover colored edition of those. So I'm hoping that they do that. Here are the eerie and creepy collections, which I need to finish out that set. I heard the project is on hiatus now, as of volume 23 is going to be the last one for a little bit, so we'll see. Dark Horse always seems to surprise us. So now, the IDW stuff. Here is the classic G.I. Joe stuff from the Marvel days by Larry Hama, of course. Everybody that grew up in the 80s watched the G.I. Joe cartoon, but the comic book was so amazing. Some of the best comic books ever written were in the right here. Transformer Classics, on the other hand, didn't get great until Simon Furman took over the book. He was a British writer. He was writing the UK books at the time, but he took over the book, and it ended, unfortunately, but it kept going in England. So, Volume 6, after 3 years, have just recently been announced to come out sometime in July, I believe, of this year, so we'll see. And we don't talk about the Dreamwave, because we hate Pat Lee. There is the Udon stuff, the Street Fighter. So, art, once again. Now, I know I've raved on about the Transformers by IDW, but Dan and I are going to do an episode where why you have to read the Transformers comics. Like to quote Dan, it's some of the best sci-fi books written that just happens to have your robots from your childhood that transform into cars and guns and planes. But seriously, these are amazing. And sadly, IDW lets some of their books go out of print, but they're really good about bringing them back. I remember there for a while, Volume 3, 5, and 7 were out of print. But they brought them back. So, in Phase 2 is where it really starts kicking. Maybe I'll do a review of Volume 5 when it comes out. There's the G.I. Joe run. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's really fun. It's a really good book. I believe is it Eastman or Laird's writing it? So Eastman is the one, that's writing this book. He's one of the co-creators of the original Ninja Turtles. And Grim Fairy Tales, because, half-naked women. Ultimate Universe down there. What are you doing? No focus on Ultimate Universe. Ultimate Universe. This was one of the reasons I got back into comic books. I left comic books for about 10 years, and New X-Men and the Ultimate Universe were about to come out, and I started getting these, and Ultimate Spider-Man was pretty fun. Bendis once again. Ultimates was really fun. It was Ultimates was, like, to me, the beginning of that widescreen kind of artwork that you see in comic books that actually started in The Authority. Same artist, Brian Hitch. But it blew me away. Of course, it kind of petered out there towards the end. But Ultimate Spider-Man remained fun. Of course, Far Side. That's my kind of humor. I love that book. So, on to the Marvel stuff. You'll see the X-Men are missing from this, but we'll get to that here in a second. Here are the Marvel omnibuses that I like. I don't get all of them because I just get the books that I really like. I don't have Captain America's, like, the original Golden Age or the Silver Age stuff, but I did get the Brubaker stuff. But I really just mainly buy the stuff that I like, or I like to read, or I know I'll reread, or my wife will read, or my kids will read. Once again, I buy the shit that I like. That's why I own The Crossing. That book gets a lot of hate, but to me, that was a really fun book. It was fun 90s stuff, even though they destroyed the character of Iron Man. But thank God for Kurt Busiek, because Avengers Forever fixed all of this. And then we have Avengers West Coast. Here's the Captain America stuff I was talking about, the Brubaker run. Now, I have to talk about this for a second. Captain Britain was a book that I wanted, but I was like, at the time I wasn't collecting. I'm going to talk about my first omnibus here in a little bit when we get to the X-Men stuff. I wasn't collecting that many omnibuses. And I'm like, well, I guess I was just getting X-Men omnibus, but obviously something changed. This changed. This was bought at Barnes & Noble when they had a glitch back in 2010. It's called the Amazon and Barnes & Noble glitch, where these $100 books went on sale for $8.98 and $10.98 I think at Barnes & Noble. So I paid $11 for that book. And that wasn't the only book, my Wolverine book, and we'll get to some. But anyway, that's the reason why I own some of these. Like, I had the Bendis Daredevil books. I bought at Barnes & Noble, and I ended up trading them. It's because I had the hardcovers, and I really didn't need them. So, and I do have some Silver Age stuff, like the Fantastic Four. Because those were really good. Like, I really liked the Galactus storyline. Then we have the Hickman run and Fraction. Down here we have Jason Aaron's Ghost Rider, and then Guardians of the Galaxy, Hawkeye, Infinity Gauntlet. I get the books that I enjoyed or that remind me of my childhood, like New Warriors. And I usually try to get the variant covers of these things. Like, if a book has a variant cover, I'll usually go with the variant cover, not the original cover. But there's only been 2 instances where I get the original cover, and that's New Warriors, because I really like Bagley's artwork more than I did Scotty Young's. And I like Scotty Young, it's just, but it wasn't my childhood. And then here's the Garth Ennis Punisher that I was talking about. This is the Marvel Knights run, the Rick Remender, and then the Jason Aaron Max title. And Secret Warrior, Secret Wars, Squadron Supreme. I had to sell my original copy of Squadron Supreme trade paperback, which was printed with the ashes of Mark Grunwald, the guy that wrote it. That was one of his things that he wanted his wife to do, was print the original trade paperback with his ashes mixed into the ink, which I thought was, just really cool. But I had to sell it in order to pay for some of these things. Like, there's the Thor by Walter Simonson, which is one, I think that is the only case that Marvel recolored some of their work. Like, it's got gorgeous colors. Thor by Straczynski, Uncanny Avengers, and then War of the Kings to finish off the Annihilation stuff. So, to continue the Omnibus stuff, here is the X-Men stuff. Not just X-Men, but Uncanny, X-Force, X-Force, Wolverine. So, this is the very first Omnibus I bought, and I really didn't want to buy them because I own the issues, so I was like, what's the point? And then I saw it at a used bookstore. I've told the story before, and I saw it for $30, and I'm like, I can't pass up on that. So I went ahead and got it, and I think this one, yeah, during the time, it's signed by Lane Wayne, Chris Claremont, Bob McLeod, and I was going to get Dave Cockrum to sign it when he was in New York. This was a long time, right before he passed away. That would have been nice, but oh well. I had met him before, and he's actually signed some of my comic books. He's a really nice guy. I hated to hear that. So yeah, and once again, when these books, sometimes when they go out of print, they just won't reprint them. Like, we have Inferno. I mean, this is one of those books that I got at Barnes & Noble during the glitch. So I only paid $11 for it, and now it goes for insane amounts of money because it's a sought-after book. You can't have the prologue and then the crossovers without Inferno in the middle. So it's, I don't know, why they don't do it. I know they've done trade paperback versions of Inferno. I don't know why there's no reprint. So, here's the book I was talking about, Wolverine. This is, this is the one that I got from Barnes & or this is the Amazon glitch one. So I wouldn't have gotten into omnibuses if it wasn't for the 2010 glitch. Trade paperbacks were fine with me. So this is so I'm one of the people that does this. Deadpool and Cable. I have every issue of Deadpool and Cable, and then I got the trade paperbacks. And then after the trade paperbacks, I sold the trade paperbacks to get the Ultimate Editions, which there were 3 of. And then they announced the Omnibus, so I sold the Ultimate Editions to get this. So I bought this damn book 4 times. So Fabian, you're welcome. I hope you get some money from that. There's the Deadpool stuff, and then the rest of the chronological Uncanny X-Men with the crossovers and things like that with other books. I wanted to bring this out. This is the Little Nemo collection. This collects all the Little Nemo. Look, it looks like a damn suitcase because this is the biggest book that I own. Like, I have no idea how to read this other than in bed, laying down. So, I'm a manly man, but man, after holding this up for so long, your arms start getting tired. But it's It's really cool because I mean this is like some of the early works of comic books. So DC start off with the 52 Omnibus. Like DC to me didn't really start until Crisis on Infinite Earths. Crisis on Infinite Earths came out, and that to me was the beginning of the DC universe with Batman Year One, Superman, Man of Steel, and George Perez's Wonder Woman. So I don't get a lot of the Silver Age or Bronze Age or Golden Age stuff. I just stick to, I guess, I don't know what kind of age it could, classic, current age, whatever it is. So there's some Vertigo books. Jeff Johns' Flash. Jeff Johns. I mean, to me, he's a big part of DC. You have his run on Green Lantern. He has Hawkman, Infinite Crisis, his run on JSA, which was phenomenal. And then you have the Volume 1 of Wonder Woman press. Now, you might be asking where the Death and Return of Superman or the Teen Titans are. Well, I'm going to show you. So this is where the Death and Return of Superman Omnibus is. Right along with the rest of the Man of Steel storyline leading up to it. You probably recognize these from Kirk's episode. I ended up purchasing them from him because he is going to Japan. So not only those, but I also got his new Teen Titans run all the way up to the Titans run by Jurgens, and then Peter David's Young Justice, all leading up to Jeff Johns' Teen Titans. And then these are the ones that I'm going to custom by myself because I used to do it and I kind of stopped. Like, let me show you some of these. Like, I did Excalibur because I wanted to do something so obscure that I'm like, no way Marvel is ever going to publish those in omnibus format. So I designed the spine in the back, much like Kirk does. And, you know, had it bound. And it was really fun. Well, with these, I did do a dust jacket. So it's a little different. So I did 5 of them. So yeah, I kind of want to start doing them again because it was a lot of fun. It was a fun project to do, to put the entire Excalibur run within 5 volumes. So yeah. Thank you guys for putting up with me on this little tour of my comics that are collected. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and you know, comment down below. Let us know what kind of things you're into, what you collect. So I wanted to show you one more thing. This is actually my first article I had published in a magazine. This thing's probably about 13, 14 years old. It's when I used to write anime for Anime Beckett magazine. I used to review toys and manga and stuff like that. So I'm sort of legit, right? Anyway, thank you guys again and have a good day. Welcome back, YouTubers, to another episode of Near Mint Condition. Today, we're going to give you a tour. I'm going to give you a tour, so let me do that again. Today, I'm going to give you a tour of my trade paperbacks, absolute editions, pretty much everything that comic book. Let me do that again.